Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. The top headlines tonight. Over 30 hours of questioning for Rahul Gandhi by the Enforcement Directorate. It's still going on. It escalates into huge protests of the Delhi police versus the Congress. The police go into the Congress headquarters. Protests erupt from Congress leaders. Now there will be Congress protests at Raj Bhavans across the country tomorrow. The BJP says these protests are in support of corruption. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh reaches out to the Congress, to the West Bengal Chief Minister, the Bihar Chief Minister to discuss a consensus candidate for President. Meanwhile, Sharad Pawar says no to being an opposition presidential candidate as Mamta's opposition unity meeting ends on a tame note. The Cabinet clears 5G spectrum auction. 5G spectrum auction by the end of July. 5G and 6G services next. New COVID highs in Mumbai and Delhi. In Mumbai, a 4-month-old baby dies of COVID. But don't panic, especially for children. Symptoms very mild, say doctors. Shiv Sena Minister Aditya Thackeray is in Ayodhya at the Ram Temple. A Maha battle for Hindutva now playing out in Ayodhya. Our lead story tonight, it's now been over 30 hours since Congress leader Rahul Gandhi is being grilled over 3 days by the Enforcement Directorate. This questioning is currently still on, but today protests escalated between the Delhi police and the Congress as the police entered the Congress headquarters. Congress has protested strongly, saying how can the police enter their headquarters and why is it that protests aren't allowed even within the headquarters? The police say we didn't use any force inside the Congress office. Today the Congress has now announced that they will actually hold protests across Raj Bhavans across the country tomorrow and sent legal notices to the Home Minister and Finance Minister. The BJP, however, maintains these protests on the streets are protests in support of corruption.
Congress versus cops escalated on day 3 as party continued protests on day 3 of Rahul Gandhi's questioning by ED. Delhi police today barged inside Congress headquarters in Delhi, leading to scuffle between police personnel and Congress leaders. Cops were seen dragging some Congress workers out of the headquarters. Heavy security remained outside the AICC headquarters. A tyre was burnt by Congress protesters near the ED office and party held a protest outside Parliament. Congress demanded a probe against the officials for barging inside its headquarters.
हम कड़े से कड़े शब्दों में मोदी सरकार और दिल्ली पुलिस के इस कुकृत्य की भर्त्सना करते हैं और मांग करते हैं कि उन सब पुलिस अधिकारियों पर एफआईआर दर्ज कर उन्हें सस्पेंड किया जाए और उनके खिलाफ डिपार्टमेंटल इंक्वायरी भी बैठे।
सवेरे या जब कांग्रेस ने प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस किया था तो दोनों मुख्यमंत्री उनके उपस्थित थे, उन्होंने अपने विचार अभिव्यक्त किए थे। आज तीसरा दिन है। हम यह पूछना चाहते हैं कि कांग्रेस शासित राज्यों के मुख्यमंत्री अपने राज्य सरकारों का कार्य छोड़कर विगत 3 दिनों से दिल्ली में क्या कर रहे हैं।
Delhi police, however, denied the allegations, claiming police personnel exercised utmost restraint.
काफ़ी लोग आए थे जिन्होंने वो बैरिकेड्स वगैरह पुलिस जवानों पे फेंके हैं, तो उसके चलते वो थोड़ा सा धक्का मुक्की हो सकती है हुई हो, लेकिन ऐसी कोई पुलिस की अंदर जाने वाली बात, लाठी चलाने वाली बात बिल्कुल गलत है। ऐसा कुछ नहीं हुआ और पिछले 3 दिन से आप देख रहे हैं, सारा नेशनल मीडिया देख रहा है कि कहीं पे भी जो पुलिस है वो किसी तरह की फोर्स यूज नहीं कर रही है।
Congress leader Sachin Pilot was also detained outside AICC headquarters, while Member of Parliament Dipender Singh Huda's residence was barricaded by Delhi police, preventing him from joining the Congress protest. Speaking to NDTV, both the leaders accused the government of using agencies for scuttling the voice of opposition.
We are in Narela police station in Delhi, and a lot of our colleagues have been detained, and we were driven here from the party office on Akbar Road, and no reason cited. We wanted to enter our own party office, which we should have been allowed to do, but I think the police and the government have made up their mind that no leader, no political opposition party we are not able to do anything. You're using the police to do lathi charge inside our offices in New Delhi. That's never happened before.
ये जहाँ पे हम बैठे हैं हमारे घर का निवास स्थान का सांसद निवास का मेरा गेट है। इसके बाहर हैवी पुलिस डिप्लॉयमेंट और बैरिकेडिंग टोटल घर को सील कर दिया गया है और ये सुबह से सील किया गया है। मैं इनसे आग्रह करूंगा एक बार ये दिखा सकते हैं तो ये दिखाएं ताकि दर्शकों को पता चले किस तरीके से अपने खुद के घर में एक बंधक के रूप में हमें रहने पे आज मजबूर कर दिया गया दिल्ली पुलिस द्वारा। तो अब पार्टी के मुख्यालय पे जाना तो कोई अपराध नहीं है और ये अधिकार प्रजातंत्र में विपक्ष का है, विपक्ष के पास ये अधिकार होना चाहिए।
Meanwhile, Congress has sought time from Lok Sabha Speaker following the manhandling of Congress MP and an alleged forceful entry of Delhi police officials in AICC headquarters.
As the Delhi police ramps up action against the ongoing protest, the Congress party has also decided to escalate its agitation and has now given a call of protests across the country at governor houses tomorrow. With camera person AJ Joseph, I'm Akshay Dongre for NDTV.
And now the latest updates on the presidential election. After a big opposition meet called by Mamata Banerjee today, the government has reached out to the opposition. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh spoke to Mamata Banerjee, West Bengal Chief Minister, and Mallikarjun Kharge of the Congress. He also spoke to Chief Ministers of Orissa and Bihar, Naveen Patnaik and Nitish Kumar, and the Samajwadi Party's Akhilesh Yadav. The government says it's keen on a consensus candidate for president, but no name has been proposed so far. Meanwhile, at Mamata Banerjee's opposition unity meeting, it ended on a tame note, with Sharad Pawar saying no to being the opposition candidate for president. Mamata Banerjee apparently then suggested Gopal Krishna Gandhi and Farooq Abdullah, but there's been no consensus on those names. Also, key opposition parties, the Telangana Rashtra Samiti and AAP, both skipped the meeting because of the Congress presence.
An opposition show of strength led by Mamata Banerjee for the presidential polls. The West Bengal Chief Minister proposed the name of 81 years old NCP Chief Sharad Pawar right at the beginning. But the man who is holding the Maharashtra coalition together declined, saying he still had a political innings to play.
I personally, even all the members of the meeting, they unanimously suggested Sharad Pawar's name. Unanimously. If Sharad Pawar is agreed, is okay, but he said he is not interested. And if not, then the name should be come from the political parties. They will consult Sharadji, consult with others, and then it will be decided.
Sources say none of the other parties had any names to propose. And towards the end of the meeting, the West Bengal Chief Minister suggested the names of former Governor Gopal Gandhi and National Conference Chief Farooq Abdullah as potential opposition presidential candidates. Sources say there was chaos at the meeting when Mamata proposed a resolution against the Modi government. Several parties said it should have been circulated earlier and that this meeting should stick to the presidential polls agenda. The opposition leaders will meet again on the 20th or 21st of June to decide on this.
No, the subcommittee has not been finalized. Only all the leaders of the parties have decided, requested Kharge ji, Mamata Banerjee and Sharad Pawar ji to contact each and every leader for the next meeting.
But if the meeting was meant to be a show of strength for the opposition, it was not an ideal start, with key parties staying away or not being invited. 22 parties were called, but there were 5 key absentees, including the TRS and the Aam Aadmi Party. Fence-sitters like the Biju Janata Dal, which have helped the BJP in the past, also stayed away. The elephant in the room turning out to be the Congress, in a weak position electorally, yet still the largest national party. Most of the parties, including Mamata Banerjee's TMC, are fighting the Congress on home ground. The TRS raised strong objections to the Congress being invited, saying there was no question of sharing any platform with the party. Aam Aadmi Party and the Akali Dal also stayed away. The Congress and the left attended today's meeting despite their frosty ties with Mamata. But opposition unity is clearly easier said than done. With key players staying away from the opposition, it's a tough task to take on the NDA in the presidential polls, with the numbers clearly in the BJP's favour. With Himanshu Shekhar, Usama Shah for NDTV.
The other big headline, well, details coming out of the cabinet clearing a 5G spectrum auction. The auction is likely to be held by the end of July. Priyanshi has the details.
Well, Sonia, 5G could be a reality in India soon as the government has given its final approval to a proposal for directly allocating airwaves to enterprises, paving the way for them to operate private 5G networks. Now, this means 5G services will be rolled out soon. A total of 72 gigahertz of spectrum for 20 years will be put to auction to be held by the end of July. Now, the government says the time is not far away when India is going to emerge as a leading country in the field of 5G technology and in fact the upcoming 6G technology. Now, what's in it for you and me? What will change in our lives? Well, a lot. 5G is expected to be 10 times faster than 4G. If it takes you 10 minutes to download a movie or a game now, it'll be done in just a minute when 5G rolls out. The government says upcoming 5G services can create new age businesses, and bonus, it could be good for the planet as well. US telecom company Verizon says 5G can reduce up to 90% of our power consumption, and you might not have to even travel abroad for surgeries, as instant data transmission and analysis could enable remote surgeries with the surgeon being far away from the patient. Robots and machines could be operated from miles away, and this also paves way for human-less automatic cars in the future. Now, a necessary step towards making 5G a reality has been taken today. Country's three main telecom companies, Vi, Airtel and Jio, are expected to participate in the bidding. Whoever wins will get the spectrum license to provide 5G access across India. Experts say 5G will reach many more people than 4G and could be a reality for India in the next 1.5 years.
That it will cover a larger number of people. Say, for example, in an area where 4G will connect 4,000 people, 5G will connect 40,000 people. My hunch is that it will take between 1.5 to 2 years.
Thanks, Priyanshi, for that update. Meanwhile, a quick look at the markets where investors are awaiting the outcome of that US Fed rate hike tonight. The Sensex fell 152 points today. The Nifty also falling by 39 points. The main points down were realty and IT shares, which would decline the most. The rupee is still trading at 78 rupees to the dollar. This as US and European markets have gained ahead of the Fed rate hike. Experts say that global markets have factored in the Fed rate hike for the moment. Let's just see how the Indian markets react when they open tomorrow and after that announcement later tonight. The big worry now across cities is the rise in COVID cases. Let's look at these numbers. The Delhi positivity rate has doubled in almost a week, as you can see in this graph. The Mumbai positivity rate is up from 9% to 13% in a week. Now, children are amongst those being hardest hit in this current wave, and though generally children are least impacted in Mumbai, this story of this 4-month-old baby who died because of COVID.
रिपीट एक्सरे हमने 2 घंटे के बाद में एक्सरे किया, जिस एक्सरे में पूरी की पूरी तरीके से फेफड़ा वाइट आउट हो चुका है उसका, और कंडीशन काफ़ी ज़्यादा डिटोरिएट होने लगी थी। और हमने उसका कोविड टेस्ट भी किया था, जो कि कोविड एंटीजन पॉजिटिव आया उसका, इसलिए फिर हमने कोविड RT-PCR भी भेजा, दैट ऑल्सो केम पॉजिटिव।
Dr. Irfan Ali, a pediatrician associated with major hospitals in Mumbai, shows the X-ray report of a 4-month-old COVID-positive boy and explains he died 6 days ago after developing sudden breathing problems. The child's mother had taken both doses of the vaccine.
बेबी के जो सिम्टम्स थे जनरली जो देखे जाते हैं कि कफ, कोल्ड, फीवर, इस तरीके के बिल्कुल भी सिम्टम्स नहीं थे ये बेबी को। सिम्टम्स रात में जस्ट ब्रेथलेसनेस स्टार्ट हुआ और विद इन 6 to 8 आवर्स में बच्चे काफ़ी कंडीशन खराब हुआ और एक्सपायर हो गया।
Doctors say that for the past 2 weeks, children with fever, vomiting and shortness of breath have been turning up at hospitals, and around 4 out of 10 are found to be COVID positive. Even in bigger hospitals like Wadia Children's Hospital, Fortis, Hinduja, the number of COVID-infected children has increased in the last 2 weeks. But most of the children are with mild symptoms.
Parents अपने आप बच्चों की टेस्ट कर रहे हैं क्योंकि उनको कोविड पॉजिटिव हुआ है इसी कारण से। But मोस्टली बच्चों को असिम्टोमेटिक्स, मतलब उनको कोई भी सिम्टम्स नहीं है, उनमें कोई फीचर्स नहीं है, या बुखार भी है तो उसकी मात्रा कम है, तो ऐसे नंबर्स काफी ज्यादा है बच्चों में, और इसीलिए अपने को कोई चिंता करने की जरूरत नहीं है।
Around 21,000 new COVID cases have been reported in Mumbai in a month, and about 9% of patients are said to be under the age of 19.
हमने अराउंड 15 से 20 बच्चे जिनको कोविड संक्रमण हुआ है ये देखा है। मेजॉरिटी बच्चों में माइल्ड इलनेसेस ही हुई है, जैसे उनकी लक्षण है सर्दी, खांसी, बुखार.
In the national capital of Delhi, the infection rate is doubling and COVID cases has been seeing a sharp rise with numbers going up 5 times in a week. On June 6th, there were around 247 corona cases in Delhi, while the infection rate was at 3.47%. And a week later, on June 14th, new cases have risen to 1,118, while the infection rate has gone up to nearly 6.50%. Among the states that show a sharp rise in cases is the southern state Karnataka. Nearly 30 students have tested positive at 2 different schools in Dasarahalli, north part of Bengaluru. Speaking exclusively to NDTV, Commissioner for Health D. Randeep says that it's not a cause of concern.
These children have been completely isolated now, and most of them are asymptomatic.
With the rise in cases of COVID numbers across the country, the worrying trend here is with children as young as 10-year-olds catching COVID. In fact, most of the states have reported huge numbers of kids catching COVID, and this seems to be even more worrying because now summer vacations have ended and also schools have resumed classes. But however, the government says that it's very premature at this point in time to just go back to complete online mode. With Pooja and Saurabh, Shrija for NDTV.
Well, a quick look at some other news. Maharashtra Cabinet Minister Aditya Thackeray was in Ayodhya at the Ram Temple today. It's his first solo visit to Ayodhya. And important in the current battle for being the Hindutva warrior which is going on in Maharashtra between the Shiv Sena and the BJP, especially ahead of crucial civic elections. The Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray has said that BJP doesn't need Hindutva, whereas the ex-Chief Minister Fadnavis has said that the BJP took bullets for the Ram Temple.
इसी के साथ आज जब हम आए हैं तो ये कोई राजनीति का विषय नहीं है, ये हमारी खुद की आस्था का विषय। पूरा शिवसेना परिवार यहाँ आया है, हजारों की तादाद में यहाँ आया है, संख्या काफी बड़ी है। आज भगवान श्री राम का दर्शन लेते हुए यही हम प्रार्थना करेंगे कि हमारे हाथों से जो भी देश की सेवा हो, महाराष्ट्र की सेवा हो, लोगों की सेवा हो, अच्छी हो।